Okay, it is May 2nd, 2020. It's currently 11:16 a.m., but I want to backtrack just to make an additional form of a notation regarding P.O.C. inside of the private residence of TRACEE Banks. She is a third party. This is a private residence at Woodside Apartments. P.O.C. is ceaselessly and currently underway. The third parties that remain in relevant position include the occupant directly above. This is number 55. And all elements are present. And so number 55 is also, well, this is inherent in state monitoring, in state stalking and harassment. Is a sexual offense in that they are listening even as the targeted individual, myself, removes clothing, uses the bathroom, engages in listening to sleep, any minor movements, hence the engagement in P.O.C. creation of activity with simultaneity to my most minor movements while I'm in the bathroom. This is revealing the engagement in such P.O.C. This is in concert with the state that it remains present, engages in flying over, flying around, making itself audibly present, as they continue to engage in corporate invasion of privacy. So specifically with regard to 11 a.m., this is with upon TRACEE Banks' exit of the apartment. Again, all that is included when TRACEE Banks is exiting. She is acting in concert with the state, who is directing improbable light inside of this apartment in conformity to every other venue where P.O.C. was underway. This is Stater Brothers. This is Starbucks. This is West Valley Jail. This is GLEN HELEN Rehabilitation Center. This is countless amount of facilitating venues engaging in state stalking, harassment, and monitoring. It is occurring here also in this private residence. The same use of directed light, improbable, impossible actually, based on the son's location, based on the son's constant movement while I was sleeping in the vehicle in my car on Vine and G Street, sleeping in her vehicle on Fern and G Street, 2 different blocks. So this would be relative different position of the sun, yet you have the same conduct of the light engaging and targeting that location, that environment where I stayed. This is the pattern of conduct. This is directed light. This is the first element, and it is also the second element with regard to creating visual activity. So to that end, drawing the consistency, what you have at 11 a.m., TRACEE Banks exits the apartment. As I sit on the couch in the living room, this is crossing paths. While she has her keychains jangling from her neck, this is audible activity as she walks past. Opening the front door, this is creation of visual activity as she lets in additional improbable light that is being directed onto the apartment. At this time of day, the sun is not directly beaming inside of the door as it was as she stood there engaging in a feigned argument and making defamatory statements of that which she knows is not true, but it is in conformity to her identity as a third party, making defamatory statements to the effect that I need help as I speak of the fact that this very residence, this private residence, is in conformity to every other facilitating venue where P.O.C. was documented and underway. This follows after being released from illegal confinement inside of West Valley Jail, where the same conduct was occurring inside of that jail as a matter of their own records and mine. This is the placement of impossible light activity inside of the facility, right in front of my cell, inside of my cell, which is pursuant to monitoring. This is the woman that takes the form as a mother. She is not a mother, and this is what I am revealing. Based on her conduct, you deduce the fact that, number one, she is a third party based on her conduct, but also, number two, her form is not even persuasive. With the information that she knows, it is not of a loving mother's character. It is not natural where you are assuming that role that you would take on or make those such statements after having been released from jail and there being no pending criminal case. You're not helping in any way while I am confined in such jail, and so while I am released from jail, having my legal background, it is actually normal and completely expected, actually, that I would continue to document and take note of any peculiar activity that I notice. It is in no way suggestive of any sort of mental incapacity, which has been her bend since May of 2018, when I became aware that my privacy was being invaded while living with her inside of my apartment in Upland, California. She immediately began summoning the police for no reason, engaging in defamatory statements. This is the officers that were summoned there after she has attacked me. Prior to my becoming aware of P.O.C., at that time I did not know it was P.O.C., did not know all that I would uncover, but what it is POC now. At the time when I discovered that I was being violated, this is when she immediately began that trail, that speech, which is malicious and false. It is defamatory in nature, and this speaks to the design of the system. TRACEE Banks is a third party acting in conformity to that system, acting in concert with third parties above, such as number 55, who is religiously engaging in activity as they are listening to my conduct, listening to my speech, listening to my movement, listening to me in the bathroom, listening at all times. And so what you have is TRACEE Banks standing at the doorway, acting in concert with the state as she's creating audible activity, making defamatory statements as improbable light activities being directed inside of the apartment. So again, as I stated earlier, while it is relevant that what she is saying for purposes of her identification as a third party, for purposes of her engaging in, that is a specific form of harassment by a third party, making such defamatory statements, while they are aware of the fact that I am not only documenting it, but seeking to expose and confront this system that she has an instrumental role in, that she is engaged in POC. So regardless of the substance of her words, which have their own legal relevance, you're looking at what she's actually doing, the substance of that form. The substance of that form behind such defamatory words is creation of audible activity as she stands in improbable light in her doorway, holding it open, letting in more light. This is visible activity. And then upon her exit, closing of the door while keys are jangling from her neck. This is all creation of activity. While number 55 is also in relevant position, she is also in relevant position. It is POC. And so this is how you break down. The same exists with regard to the forms of harassment experienced inside of the jail. Yes, in and of itself, it is relevant legally with regard to that harassment, with regard to any physical or sexual assault or battery, but it is also in its substance POC, whether it is in a violent form or in a non-violent form. It is all POC at all times, and so this is the point with seeing the consistency and analyzing the conduct. TRACEE Banks is very much a third party who is in every way, with every action that she takes, engaged in POC, whether it is walking in the kitchen for no reason, pressing the button on the microwave in order to create the sound of a beep, while she is engaging in visible and audible activity in doing so, crossing path in doing so. That's POC. In concert with resident occupant number 55, who was above me, directly above me, in the living room upstairs, creating audible activity, creaking on the ceiling. That requires this third party to literally be standing or sitting, however they're doing it, creating enough weight on the floor to create the ceiling. This is not something that's going to naturally just happen by just sitting there. They are literally applying force such that the ceiling would creak. They are acting in concert together. The timing of their conduct, it is in concert with one another, while the airplanes are engaged in flying about, circling above. This is concerted conduct. The airplanes roaring their engines outside of the apartment is audible activity. They do so in concert with one another, as TRACEE Banks inside of the apartment is creating both audible and visible activity. She walks out of the kitchen, goes back into her bedroom, turns on the faucet, turns on the light. This is audible and visible activity. She walks back out again. So she entered the kitchen for no reason. She just pressed the button on the microwave. We just want to break this down. Whether it actually has an appearance of some purpose or not, i.e. cooking dinner using aluminum foil, creating light activity on the ceiling and doing so, or whether it has no form whatsoever, merely walking into the kitchen and pressing the button on the microwave for no reason at all in order to just cross path and walk back into her bedroom, turn on the light, which is light activity, jingling keys all the way around her neck, which is audible activity, while the airplanes in number 55 are engaging in considered conduct of creating audible activity. This is POC. And it is occurring on a ceaseless basis. I am just showing the ways in which it is occurring, and not only are they acting in real time to that which they are listening to me document about criminal conduct, this is something that is occurring on a ceaseless basis, right? So this morning, as I awake from sleep, not moving, right, but based on the corporate invasion of privacy, this is knowledge of breathing patterns, of eye movement. Number 55 is aware that I'm awake, immediately begins stomping on the ceiling, right? Not only is this legally relevant for purposes of a specific form of harassment, it is POC, creation of audible activity, in relevant position to me, while TRACEE Banks inside of the apartment is positioned in her bedroom, on her bed, in relevant position on the opposite side of the wall that separates the living room and the bedroom, with her communication device right next to her. This is POC. right? Improbable light activity at 8-something in the morning in the same position that it is at right now at 11:26 a.m. This is stationary improbable light activity. This is not based on the sun. This is P.O.C. This is what I am showing is occurring inside of this private residence, and it is in conformity to every other facilitating venue where I have been at. And this is why I am breaking down the presence of all elements at all times. My mere goal in documenting it is to show that this is a system that is in existence, and it never ceases to be in action, to be in motion. The state is engaged in the criminal Okay, this is just a follow-up note with regard to the third-party conduct, directing light onto the bedroom door from outside of the apartment. This is with simultaneity to my verbal documentation of P.O.C. This is speaking to the third party and the state knowledge of my activity and intent to monitor because it is in conformity to the behavioral patterns of directing light in the environment, in the location where I'm at. And based on that behavioral pattern, based on that conduct, and based on the targeted location, based on the fact that it is light that must be directed into the apartment. It is not any natural occurrence. This is how you identify it as P.O.C. for purposes of monitoring. It is also how you deduce that the third parties and the state alike are engaged in corporate invasion of privacy, aware of my presence, and engaged in targeting me for purposes of monitoring, and even aware of what I am doing at the current time. And so this is being in use of a communication device, directing light into the apartment for purposes of monitoring me in use of that communication device. And the timing, again, is revealing of the overall P.O.C., and it is revealing as to the knowledge based on that conduct. So this is 11:36 a.m., and I am inside the private residence of Tracy Banks, number 51, inside of Woodside Apartments, where P.O.C. has already been documented a year ago prior to now. What I am showing is the consistency, the ongoing nature of that. And again, you have light that continues to move left and right at the top portion of her bedroom door. This is not coming from inside, this is coming from outside. And as I speak of it, they mimic it. This is just like the airplanes did as I continue to document their conduct. As I spoke it, this is proving that they are listening to me, that they are engaged in the very conduct that I am documenting, that I am speaking of. They are engaged in moving that light left and right across the top portion of her bedroom door, and it has to be the top portion because it's coming out of the window and it has the vertical slots inside of the light that is moving. It is reminiscent of the quote-unquote walls of light that I have documented inside of venues that are engaged in P.O.C., such as Starbucks. And inside of GLEN, HELEN Rehabilitation Center, they had walls of light that was not based on the actual location of the sun. It is in no way a natural occurrence based on what the sun actually does, based on any light that would be reflected inside of that facility or inside of Starbucks. This is light activity, improbable light activity pursuant to the P.O.C. of monitoring. And so as I speak it, you have third parties that are engaging in real-time reaction. They are engaging in the conduct as I do it. So that was another incident at 11:36 to 11:38 right now of movement of light across the wall. This is P.O.C., okay? And this is also showing that they are indeed listening to what I'm saying. This is natural, this is inherent when you have a state system of monitoring, stalking, and harassment. What I am showing is, okay, the way that it manifests and how it works. And it also speaks to coloring and characterizing the state's conduct with regard to prosecution, with regard to exposure, and adequate legislation to address it for future purposes. It is 11:38 a.m., and I just wanted to stress that point as I continue to speak. Again, so this is speaking to that which I have already historically documented, that I am subject to constant invasion of privacy on a corporate level. So while inside of West Valley Jail, every single last one of them were listening to me at the same time, acting in concert. While I'm here at inside of a private residence, you have corporate invasion of privacy. The state is acting in concert with third parties that surround. The state surrounds as well. And the airplanes, they engage in flying, creating activity, acting in concert with third parties down here on the ground. This is pursuant to their ongoing listening to the targeted individual. This is the nature of the system. And so this is what I want to stress, and this is how you deduce that. So this is my pointing out the ways in which you see how that works. More than me just pointing it out, my knowledge, I'm showing the proof of that based on their conduct, what has to be known in order for them to be engaging in such conduct on a consistent basis. It is an element of the system. So it is 11:39 a.m. Whether Tracee Banks is inside of the apartment or not, she is actively engaged in P.O.C. She is aware of my location. She is aware of my speech, aware of my written word. And again, this is deduced from the same conduct. The use of the dog barking in the background, that is a means of audible activity. This needs to be understood. The resident, principally in resident number 41, engages in crossing path and using her dogs as a means of audible activity as she engages in P.O.C. When I am inside of the apartment, also when I sit on the stairs outside of the apartment, outside of view where typically the cars on Vine Avenue engage in creating visible activity, driving past. This is crossing path, and it is also creating visible activity. When I sit higher on the stairs such that the vehicles cannot see me, you have the residents that come out engaging crossing path, creating audible activity. And this was done on numerous times, but specifically of recent, the last time I did that, you have the resident in number 41, an overweight Latina female who walks more than one dog that start barking at the time that they are crossing paths with me. Being inside of the apartment, using the dogs is as a means of audible activity is also very familiar. This occurred as I traveled from county to county. You have the use of birds, the exact same sounding type birds at every place I went. You're talking about in Orange County, you had the same birds that were chirping around my car as I was sleeping in my car, sleeping outside of the park. And Diamond Bar, the same type of birds, they use it as a means of audible activity. The dog barking, this was used sleeping on Vine and G in my car, sleeping on Fern and G in Tracee Banks' car. Being in different counties, this is common use of P.O.C. for purposes of audible activity. It is a means of P.O.C. And so this is just another way of engaging in the same conduct. And so this is how you deduce, this is how you find the same presence of all elements that are occurring at all times. And what you have are third parties that act in concert, that alternate. They are acting together with the state and with one another, just as was illustrated inside of the facility of West Valley, most recently on their own cameras. It is currently 11:41 a.m. and this is just to streamline the presence of all elements at all times and the many ways in which they manifest themselves. This is a system of stalking, harassment, and monitoring, and this is the ways that they manifest themselves in a perfectly feasible manner. Outside of the state engaging in stalking and harassment and surveillance, it would otherwise be undetectable because you don't have this heightened level of aggression and hostility, but it makes itself more pronounced where the targeted individual is aware and there is an outright effort to seek to defame, to seek to falsely confine, in other words, to silence, right? And this is why you have the courthouses denying legal relief that I am entitled to under the law. It's actually a crime that they denied me that relief. This is why you have the police stealing my car, using the law as the guise of that was merely formed for P.O.C. When they did so, but understand that it was also a form of ratcheted up aggression and hostility on the part of law enforcement directed to a targeted individual who was aware, who was seeking to confront the system. So this is what you have, and it is helpful in that it is seeking to expose that which is at work. It is a matter of public corruption. Public corruption, by definition, hides in plain sight. So it is not merely a dog barking. What you have is third parties acting in concert, engaging in audible activity as they are listening to the targeted individual document their criminal conduct. This is what you have over and over and over again. The use of light across Tracee Banks' bedroom door in relevant position to me as I am inside of the apartment, verbalizing P.O.C., the timing and the conduct. This is visible activity that they are creating. This is the first and second element, and they do so while listening to me. Knowingly, the targeted individual is speaking of their conduct, and they engage in that very act at the time that I'm speaking of it. This is not coincidence. This is called the pattern, and this is how you will recognize it. So anyway, it's 11:43 a.m. I am inside of number 51. Again, third parties in the state are all paused listening to me as I speak. P.O.C. never stops. What I am doing is documenting iterations of P.O.C. moment by moment, but it is in no way an individualization of any one party because 55 currently is acting, or I specify Tracee Banks currently acting such that I may perceive it, is in no way exclusive of or not inclusive of the state, which remains in close physical proximity. They remain engaged in surveillance and stalking, just like the deputies inside of West Valley. Just because I did not see them them, they were engaged in hiding, remaining in relevant close physical proximity while I was in the jail. This is shown on their own camera. So this is P.O.C. It is 11:44. You have light moving across the door. You have keys jingling outside. This is visible and audible activity as I continue to document P.O.C. And this is how it goes. It is a cycle. It is a ceaseless and serial system of corruption. This is what is stalking conduct inside of an apartment. It is analogous to that which applies outside, just as like any other person that will be hiding behind a bush. You've got stalking conduct inside of the apartment as the occupant above follows from room to room, creating activity as you go. You have the ongoing surveillance by the state. This is stalking conduct, following everywhere that you go. It is the conformity to that system. And so this is what state stalking, harassment, and monitoring appears as when it is no longer a secret, when it is exposed and put out in the open. And this is also the dual effort that is unsuccessful, that is actually helpful in exposing the totality of the malice and intent to oppress in all of its form, including the court system, including law enforcement. Okay, to backtrack to 11 a.m. with regard to the improbable light activity that remains all the way up to actually 8:39 a.m., I believe, when I initially started documenting P.O.C. on the part of number 55, who started stomping with simultaneity to my being awake, and that is being awake from sleep after having not moved, did not move my body. All I did was I woke up from sleep, my eyes were still closed, and they immediately began engaging in activity. Okay, so this is inaudible to the human ear. What I want to get to, though, is the placement of improbable light activity on the wall adjacent to this couch where I sit. This is light that remains present at all times. And what I want to point out again is another inconsistency. So you have, as of 11, the same light present and on the wall, and it is not moving. And so also what you also see is that the placement of the, it's not even, I'm going to refer to it as it is, the light being directed onto the building. But what I want to do is point out, let's just go with it. Let's go ahead with the highly improbable and unnatural proposition that is the sun that is directing light, direct light. So this is direct light onto the apartment. If it were directing from that, whereas the sun rises in the east and sets on the west, and Woodside Apartments is north of the sun, right? Okay, we've got the sun activity at Starbucks, we've got the sun activity at Stater Brothers. There are so many ways in which this is readily provable, but like I said, this is just to go on ahead with the point. These are the unintelligent methods that the state is engaged in as it desperately continues to engage in criminal conduct of targeting. And why are they directing sunlight or false light, directed light? Why are they reflecting light onto this environment where I'm at? For purposes of monitoring. This is what is relevant about it. Where you have this light being directed, it speaks to the presence of all other elements, and this is why it is highly relevant. Because you do not direct light but for that purpose. What other reason are you going to be doing it? What other reason would the sun be acting contrary to its own nature? Okay, because this is not sunlight, and this is that which is occurring at every other venue. This is a pattern. Okay, that's the significance of it, but let's just point out the inconsistency based on common sense in nature. If the sun were pointing in that direction, as I have captured, over the apartment, it would not be shooting backwards across the wall. What you have is light shooting through the side of the window, and not only that is it shooting backwards, where the sun rises on the east, it is at this time would be approaching the noon. So this is the sun rising in the sky, where Woodside Apartments is north of the location of the sun. Again, let's remember this. The sun, not only would it not be directing direct sunlight, but also it's not going to be directing onto the apartment into the door, and then also through the window, it will be shooting backwards to hit this wall. This is improbable light activity. This is not based on any intelligent method either. This is purely focusing on my location inside of the apartment, and that is it. It is the same unintelligent tactics engaged in West Valley, where I pointed out the highly asinine tactics of the light pointing straight down through a window at the very top of the building, which is impossible. And not only that, the impossible movement of that light that also appeared in different places and moved in an impossible manner. It is ridiculous. And so I am just pointing out the ways in which it is occurring inside of the private residence, apartment number 51. In addition to the moving light on the that bedroom door inside of Tracy Banks' apartment. So this is a state, this is an entity, this is considered conduct that is in no way seeking to hide itself, or perhaps it's just woefully unprepared to be scrutinized because it is not persuasive, it is not intelligent, it is not based on any form of common sense or in conformity to any sort of rudimentary basics, an understanding of the sun, the position, the constant movement of the sun, having light remaining in a stationary position inside of an apartment where it's shooting backwards all day long, whether the sun is on the east or on the west, whether the location is north of the sun's actual location or not. So, like I said, in addition to that, every other place where I've been where you have the presence of the sun, direct sunlight onto my location, is also going to be contradictory to that which is occurring right now. It is always based on where I am at, and those contradictions are easily comparable, right, in order to show the conflict, but also with regard to the actual position of the sun, the time of day, the time of year. This is readily provable, and so this, again, is not any question. In the same way that the state engaging in constant stalking and surveillance is not a question. It has already been established as a matter of documentation. It has already been presented to the court, irrespective of the court's criminal conduct of not providing me the relief that I am entitled to under the law. It has already been presented to them. They have merely shown their identity by engaging in such acts of evading service of process. That is what it is useful for. It is in no way probative of the lack of evidence that has already been presented to the courts, which have shown themselves, the judges and the attorneys alike, as engaged in a state system of public corruption, seeking to target American citizens. And this is why it is relevant what was presented to the courts and their conduct, conduct as a result of that. And that is how it is probative, and that is how it is revelatory to the system that is at work. It is 11:52 a.m. and again, that was just speaking to the laser-like conduct of improbable light inside of this private residence, which is counter to common sense. It's counter to nature. It is counter to assuming that this was actually the light that was actually from the sun. It is not. But in addition to that, you also have it acting like a laser. It would be shooting through the window backwards, where the sun is, where this light has been present inside of the apartment since before 8 a.m. and it is now 11, and it is still present in the same position. This is not natural. Okay, it's 11:53 a.m. Third parties are continuously engaged in surveillance, invasion of privacy, and this is all including sexual offense. So this is Woodside. The occupants inside of these apartments, this is attributable to Woodside. This is that which would be brought against the state. But each facilitating venue, Woodside Apartments and the private residents engaged in concert, this is perpetuated as a unit. They are engaged in corporate conduct. This is definitely attributed to Woodside Apartments, who are liable. Third parties are acting pursuant to the knowledge of Woodside Apartments, the management, use of their cameras, hiring quote-unquote gardeners, engaging in P.O.C. in concert with the state. This is all corporate acts, and they are definitely attributable to Woodside Apartments. This is in the same way Starbucks, Stater Brothers, West Valley, engaging in criminal conduct with the state. And so this is why legislation is inadequate. There are many, many ways in which this needs to be addressed. It can be addressed, and I have addressed it with regard to my legal documentation presented to the courts, which again were illegally denied and not addressed because of the court's engagement in a state's public matter of corruption. So that's why that is the case. It is in no way based on the lack of merit, right? So you've got meritorious claims, and the only way to resolve it is to be able to seek resolution against the state in and of itself, because where you have law enforcement engaged in violating your rights, legal damages are inadequate, and that was the substance of my petition presented to the court, and what they did was evade service of process. So I have revamped over that over and over again, but it is relevant, and it is to be stressed because it is the bigger picture under the totality of circumstances. It is relevant to the light that's being directed inside of this department. It is relevant to being falsely imprisoned. It is relevant to judges engaging in fictitious prosecutions in order to confine me for a prolonged amount of time. It is relevant to that which was defined as stalking, harassment, and monitoring inside of the jail, which was also documented on their own cameras. It is relevant to all of that. This is the big picture, and this is the system. Again, it's 11:55 a.m., and this is POC within the confines of a private residence, right? This is what has been occurring for years at a ratcheted up level, there was not a whole amount of impossible, ridiculous, or maybe I would not have even noticed it, light being directed into, or being molested by light, being stalked by light. What you have is an incredulous amount of aggression and hostility based on a desperation to keep a corrupt system concealed. And that's what this represents. But this POC in and of itself has existed for years. And TRACEE Banks, the one who I lived with for years, engaging in this, which is also a sexual offense, for years, in concert with third parties who I lived with, who I was surrounded with for years. Law enforcement engaged in targeting for years. Upon becoming aware of it in 2018, this is where the POC increases in its being pronounced, and the aggression by the state and third parties alike, and harassment, and every other form. And that is how the big picture is understood. It's 11:56 a.m. I just want to bring it back to the ILA and the laser light conduct inside of the apartment, which is not based on any position of the sun. It's May 2nd, 2020.